How can you begin to make sure that you don't make the same mistake twice and end up exactly where you are today? What is up, my dear friend, and welcome to the Happy Heart Academy podcast. I am your host and your heartbreak coach, Tyler Joe Stratton, and today we are going to be discussing how you can begin to build a hope-filled future. And more importantly, we're going to be focusing in on how can you make sure that you don't recreate the past so that you don't end up in the same present that you're at right now. I'm basically going to be helping you understand, hey, what can I do so that I don't repeat my past and create the same present moment that I'm living in today, heartbroken, brokenhearted, single. Because ultimately I don't believe that that's what we really want to experience. We don't want to be single. We're not meant to be just single. We're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to thrive by ourselves. We're meant to be with someone. So eventually you're going to want to put yourself back out there and open your heart back up and to live more joyfully from your heart rather than your hurt so that you can experience one of the greatest fulfillments. You see, your greatest fulfillment and joy in life is going to come from the relationships you have with yourself, others, and God. And ultimately, the only way that you're going to feel true fulfillment, satisfaction, love, joy, and excitement and hope and vitality and aliveness is if you re-engage yourself into those relationships with yourself, others, and God. Right now, you're feeling a little of void, and you're trying to void yourself and strip yourself away from other relationships. Not only the relationship with yourself, you're distracting yourself so that you don't have to deal with yourself because you don't know how to deal with the pain. You're distracting yourself from the relationships that are currently coming into your life, what you're currently attracting. You're like, I'm scared, I'm fearful, I'm nervous, I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt again. Well, I'm going to help you try to understand how you're not going to get hurt again. And also today we're going to be talking about the importance of really how you can begin to anticipate the future without being so fearful of getting hurt, being let down, or finding yourself single again. So before we get into that, I do want to say, listen, my dear friend, I put a lot of time, energy, and effort into the free 30-minute training on how to create happiness after your heartbreak. If you're interested in that, be sure to check out the show notes below. There you'll find a link where you'll put your name and email in and you'll get access to a free 30-minute video. Actually, I think it's less than that, but ultimately you're going to learn what's currently keeping you stuck in your pain. And also you're going to understand what you can begin to do today, what you can begin to focus on today so that you can begin to let go of the past, move on from your ex, and reclaim your life and find your happiness. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to check out the link in the show notes below. Click on the free training, and there you'll head over to what is a landing page, put your name and email in there, and you'll get the free training, and that's on the house. So now on to today's episode. My dear friend, how can we begin to build a hope-filled future and make sure that we don't create a future that replicates the past? Or how do we make sure that we don't recreate the past in the future? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I want to first off say, like, a lot of the times when we go through a heartbreak, a breakup, a separation or divorce, one of the biggest fears that we experience is the fear of experiencing that pain again. We're so afraid to feel abandoned, unworthy of love, being ignored and not seen or heard or felt or appreciated. We're so fearful to be alone again. We're so fearful to give our hearts away to only get them broken. It's like, so we don't open our heart up. We don't allow ourselves to open our heart up enough to experience the goodness that and the healing that relationships can bring. Good relationships can bring good healing. And I want to encourage you today to begin to open your heart up a little bit more. Listen, you always have a choice. You have a choice every single morning, whether you're going to live in your pain, in your hurt, or in your heart and heal. And each day brings a new second chance that can allow you to be able to be renewed and make sure that you don't repeat the same mistakes twice. Listen, we do not spend enough time alone thinking about the day that we just lived or the past, or enough to really integrate new ways to be, new ways to live, new ways to perceive things. And so I want to challenge you to begin to live more joyfully from your heart today. Choose heart over hurt. Because your greatest happiness is still going to come from the relationships that you have with yourself, others, and God. It can't just be God. It can't just be yourself. It can't just be it with others. It has to be the trinity of all three: yourself, others, and God. And you have to begin to make sure that you understand those three relationships. And in order to understand those, I do have a book called The Big Three. It's actually, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll move my mic a little bit. It's in the background there. My thumb's like on the book right now. I should have actually had a copy over here, but nonetheless, it's a book called The Big Three. And it's a book that basically talks about how you can rebuild a relationship with yourself, others, and God after heartbreak, divorce, separation, downfall, the breakdowns, the dark times. And I think you're going to find that very helpful to just kind of get your brain thinking about, the relationship that you have with yourself, others, God, and everything in between. But let's get on to the main topic today, right? And I just want to encourage you to try to live more joyfully from your heart today rather than your hurt. And how can you do that? Ask yourself, how can I begin to live more joyfully from my heart? Well, some of the things that I used to do to help me open up my heart is I became more of a hugger rather than like shaking hands. I started hugging my parents more. I started hugging, people in general more. I started to hold higher eye contact. I started to allow people in. It's crazy the amount of what I kind of want to call inness, but it's like intimacy almost, or connection that you create when you hold eye contact with someone. You're like, oh, I don't want to be seen. I don't want them to know that I'm hurting, so I won't hold eye contact with them. But just allow people in. You'll be surprised how many people do care when they look into your eyes. And if they're working on themselves, they'll recognize that you're hurting and they'll be like, hey, just checking in. How you doing? And so listen, I want to talk about how you can begin to create a hope-filled future, because a lot of the times we oftentimes get stuck in the past and we stay in the past because we don't have a hope-filled future to live toward. We don't have a hope-filled future that excites us, that pulls us out of the painful past. And we stop dreaming, we stop hoping, and the only thing that we hope for is for the past to become our present and our future, meaning that what we do hope for is for them to come back into our lives for, I wish things were, the way they used to be kind of mindset, right? Not anything more than that. And I want to change that for a minute, because there's a bigger reason and there's a brighter future coming your way when you recognize that you are the creator of your future. So listen, you can anticipate the future without fear by beginning to study the past. So how do you make sure when you go back out into the dating space, when you go back out into the world, when you begin to open your heart back up, how can you begin to make sure that, hey, listen, I don't want to get hurt again? Well, a lot of that's on you, but a lot of that's on the partner, right? You can only control so much. I do want to say that this is not all entirely up to you. So I can't say if you follow this is your guaranteed way to never get hurt again. But it is a surefire way that if you respect yourself enough, then you won't allow yourself to be so involved, and you'll be able to pull back and be able to leave that relationship without years wasted. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to really understand when it comes to creating a better and brighter future for yourself is you first have to study the past. So I need you to go back to your past. It's not like you don't live there, right? It's like you're reminiscing about your ex, you're reminiscing about the past. But I want you to just take out like your notepad, your pen, and I want you to analyze the past and try to think about how you could have been better, showed up differently. Recognize these two things. When you study the past, you need to know how you were and then how you can change. So understand how you acted in that time, how you showed up, how you felt, and then you need to understand how you would like to have showed up. So there's this lower self and then there's this higher self. And I need you to tap into both. So like, for example, studying the past. When I think about my ex-partners, one of the things, the reason why they never really worked out is because I spoke more than I listened. And I would often talk over them. I would get loud. I would get, angry. I would get triggered. And ultimately, these things that I recognized that were patterns in all of my relationships that didn't work out, I decided to not to bring into my latest relationship was not, and now it's, I'm happily married and with a beautiful partner. And it's because I'm not bringing those bad parts of me into this relationship, or I'm trying not to. I'm being more intentional about it. I'm being more aware of it. I don't want to create a broken home. I don't want to create a broken heart. I don't want to create, a divorce. I want to create intimacy and connection and happily ever after, like we all do. And so if I want to do that, I've got to make sure I study the past and understand how I was basically wrong in the past relationships. You see, like I said, you can anticipate the future by studying the past. So you can anticipate what's going to happen if you understand what you did before. Because a lot of the things that we do are habitual, meaning that we do them every single time. But we just got to understand what those things are and how they do not serve ourselves or that relational partner, how they didn't serve them. So, what are the different things that you can change, or what are some of the red flags that you bring to a relationship that you could begin to work on yourself? Because the best way that you can begin to create a better future, one that doesn't maybe result in a broken heart, is by understanding those two different things. It's how did you show up? How did you show up in a more poor manner? And then how could you show up in a greater manner? And then once you understand how you would show up if you were your best self, I want you to start to apply that into your daily life. Maybe you'd be more engaged. Maybe you'd be less focused on your phone. Maybe you wouldn't be so quick to judge. Maybe you wouldn't be so quick to get triggered. Maybe you would give more grace. Maybe you'd forgive more. Maybe you would communicate more effectively. Maybe you'd take a deep breath. Maybe you would step away. Maybe it's like all of these different things that caused your relational breakup and divorce and separation. There's better ways that you could have handled it. And I'm not saying if you handled it in that better way that the divorce, the separation, or the breakup wouldn't have happened, but at least you would have been not so regretful, or you wouldn't have regretted. And because like a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of people that I coach are like, I gave everything. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't show up as your best self. You might have felt like you gave everything, but like you didn't show up as your best self because you still live in regret. Like, I wish I would have changed this, that, or the other. And ultimately, you can change this, that, or the other in the future relationships. So it's like identifying what you wish you could have changed in the past and begin to work on them now during your singleness so that it's changed in the future. So just spend some time studying the past, understanding what you would have changed in the past of yourself so that you can work on changing it in the present so it's changed in the future. That's number one, studying the past. Understand what you've done, what you wish you would have done better, and who you could have been, who you wish to be. And that's all about studying the past. The second big idea that I have here is I think one of the best ways that you can predict and anticipate the future is if you understand that you are the creator of the future. For example, let's say right now you wake up and you stub your toe, you spill coffee on your clothing, you just have a piss poor morning. One that just like you're in a bad mood, you woke on the wrong side of the bed, things are not going your way, you're, running late, traffic is out of hand, it's a rainy day, you forgot something back at home, like it's one of those days, right? Well, in that moment, you can continue to either write a negative story to predict your future and your day ahead, or you can change the story. You can change and rewrite a new story. It's like, yeah, that was a crazy morning, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a crazy day. I have the ability to change my perception of what I went through. So one of the greatest ways in which I've learned to not repeat my bad habits, my failures, and create a better future for myself and for my family is by creating it. understanding what it is I want. You see, you cannot move on from the past if you have nothing to move forward toward in the present to create a hope-filled future. Like, you need something to look forward to. And right now, everything that you look forward to is actually looking behind you. It's in the past. Everything you want is in the past. And maybe that's not the complete truth, but you understand where I'm coming from. And so I need you to just understand that you have the power to create the future. Spending 10 minutes a day just to understand, what do I want this day to look like and feel like? Who do I want to be and how do I want to show up? Understanding who is your best self and how can you work on becoming that each and every single day? You know, how can I become a better version of me and how can I attract a better partner? Like, what does my future partner look like? Like, what does my future living look like? What does my future income look like? What does my future passions and creative expression looks like? Like, what does my future purpose look like? Like, what does my future mindset look like? Health set, heart set, soul set. The how do I handle difficult situations? Like, you can get inspired and excited about creating a better vision, a better future for yourself. Once again, one of the greatest ways to not repeat the past is by creating a future today, by spending some time with yourself to understand, like, hey, I have the ability to create a good day. I have in a great future begins by creating a good day. So maybe spend some time. How can you create a better day today or a better day tomorrow? What are some of the things that you would like to implement into your life so that you are well off and in a better mindset, a better heart set, a better health set and soul set? You know, ultimately, I spend daily on a day-to-day basis. Like, I have my journal sitting right here in front of me. I always have my mission in front of me. I write down my mission daily. I write down my goals daily. So I have something to look forward to because I'm so caught up in the present moment of building and designing and creating, because I have a hope-filled future to look forward to, that I don't spend much time in my past wishing and hoping and just living in something in a place that I can't take control of. Like, everything that's in the past, you have no control over. It's in the past, it's over. So, like, why do we spend time trying to change something that we just don't have the ability to change? So I want to make sure that what you can begin to focus on to create a hope-filled future, one that is better for you, one that, so that you don't recreate a a future that looks very similar to your past, is by start to study the past and start to create a better future for yourself. You know, if you want to attract a better quality partner, there's two things that I recommend. This is the last thing I'm going to share today, but the two things that I recommend if you want to attract a better quality partner. First thing, I need you to list out what you want your partner to be like, feel like, say, how do they act? How do they feel? How do they look? How do they interact with you? How do they make you feel loved? How do they, make you feel adored and appreciated? And ultimately, write out some of their characteristics, right? Spend some time creating a excuse me, a partner that excites you, because that partner is out there. Now what you need to do is, once you have those attributes, those character traits written down, I need you to focus on becoming those attributes and those character traits, because ultimately you never attract what you want. You always attract what you are, and you will only attract more of what you are and what you are becoming. So focus on becoming those attributes and attracting that person into your life by becoming that person in your life. That's the first thing that I would tell you to do to build that, to allow yourself to create a better, hope filled, how to attract that better partner in your life. So it's really, number one, it's creating that character. It's creating that person. It's building them up. And then number two, it's becoming them, because you will attract what you are, not what you want. So listen, if you don't want the same future as you had in the past, if you don't want the same past into your future, then my dear friend, be sure to go ahead and study the past, create the future, and begin to attract a better quality person by becoming a better quality person. My name is Tyler Joe Stratton. I'm so grateful that you're here today on the Happy Heart Academy podcast. I hope this podcast served you. And if it did, I ask that you please kindly leave a review on the Apple Podcast app and or on Spotify or wherever you listen to this. It would help this podcast out greatly in so many ways. It's just like, this is a great podcast. I don't just 5 stars, this great podcast. That would be so helpful to get this podcast out there and reach more lives, touch more hearts, and help people to move on from their darkness and from their despair so that we can create a better quality of life for each other.